with, there we go, along with some other individuals. So it was first, we started doing the entrepreneurship across campus. Then we started working with individuals who were formerly incarcerated. So myself, Dr. Paul Archibald, Howard Wicker, and Jonathan Moore. Not Jonathan Moore. Yeah, Jonathan Moore. Jonathan Moore. So Howard was our in-house expert, but I'm gonna get to Howard later. And then Paul was the researcher. My role was to find resources, the money for us. And then Jonathan focused on, well, all of us focused on the curriculum, but he pretty much led that. So we've become, some good friends over the years. He's helped us out with a number of activities around working with not just the returning citizens, but individuals in general. So he's going to share with you some of the lessons learned throughout the 2 years that we've been doing this particular initiative. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the stage Dr. Paul Archibald.
Yes. You can put that power. All right, good. Good afternoon. Actually, a good space for me to jump in because our brother just really started talking about the why, right? And so a lot of times when we think of, we hear that word research, it's like, we even got to engage that. But the research work is really about getting to the why. And so just what Yvonne was just talking about, this work is about us finding out, okay, if we're doing this why program, what is happening? Why do we even need it, right? Why is it even important? And so what I did was I looked at all so you can understand how I collected this stuff. So talking to people, looking through all of the applications that people have over the 2 years, looking at all of that information, all of the program stuff, looking at the for the participants are here. You remember those assessments you have to do, looking at just some of your pre and your, it's anonymous, so I don't know whose is who, right? So I don't know what your stuff is, right? But looking at the pre and post assessments, looking at the growth wheel and how people are responding. Do you remember the growth wheel? Okay, you remember the growth wheel. And looking at the growth wheel and seeing how people respond to it. So that's what I gathered the information from. So I'm just gonna go over quickly just so you can see some of this. Oh, I keep forgetting. Next slide. I don't have control. Okay, so why we were doing this in the first place, right, was R.I.D.E came about because we looked at, and people talked about it the whole time we were here, is that coming back is very complex, right? So it's not a simple process. It's really, really, really complex. And so we also found out that when people are coming back, a lot of people are coming back, having access to things like education, employment, all the stuff that we know will make people successful, they don't have access to that. It's just not available, and what's available is poor. What we also found out, again, through the research, is that up to about 75% of people who are coming back can't find work. Just can't find work. People are just not trying to hire them. And so we know that if people are able to find work and take care of themselves, what's going to happen? We're going back to what we know best, right? And so that's a problem. So are we really, with my ask the question, system, so do we really want people to be successful if we're not allowing them to be employed and get education, or are we really just trying to get them back into that system? Next slide. And so what we talked about in our time together was, what could we do to really address it? And so we were at Morgan, and we had this whole thing. It's interesting that when we started the entrepreneurship program, it was not about people who were returning citizens. So let's just keep that real, right? It was called Entrepreneurship Across Campus. So that means we were really looking at faculty, staff, and students. Everybody see where I'm going? It wasn't, okay, y'all see where I'm going, right? It wasn't until Howard Wicker that we'll talk about, who challenged us, was like, y'all need to get y'all life right. Right? He said, how are y'all focusing on people who are in college, who are heading towards employment? Right? They're already heading towards it. They already got it. What about people who don't have access? Why won't you not open it up to this group? And we was like, yeah, that makes sense, right? And it kind of hit our hearts, and we was like, man, that's kind of rough. And so, next slide. And so we rethought our whole program. When it first started, when we first put it together in 2014, this is what RIDE stood for. You can see it's different, right? It was called Resolve, Innovate, Deliver, and Evaluate, right? That was, you can see where all, remember that? You can see where the research and all that wonderful academic stuff showed up. This is real academic. So this is the first iteration of RIDE. Next slide. And we started moving it along. Now you can see when we moved it into the process, when we started including, I think our sister talked about earlier, when we started including everyone, not just people who are in this academic space, we started looking at it differently. So now we need to help people to launch something. And once they launch, see what, if you think of a lot of reentry work, we get people ready to do stuff, but we don't help people to sustain it. And then once it's sustained, can it now grow? Right? And that's where we started thinking differently. Next slide. And so, you guys remember this. Participants, y'all remember this guy, right? There you go. I know you. Growth wheel. You might not know what that is, but they do. I'm not going to get into it because they can talk about it better than me. But this is what we use. The growth wheel is really what we use to really track, assist, help, move, get people to keep thinking about their work. Next slide. Just trying to show you all the parts of RIDE, some of the parts. So these are some of the things that happen. They have an introduction. There's a boot camp. They have business advisors. They have mentors. They have one of the wonderful things that, again, Howard Wicked, you don't hear him saying his name a lot. You just have to get over it. Howard Wicked really pushed this in terms of, he's like, you can't just have this stuff and not have an association. So we really introduce people to, are they interested in association? Are they interested in leadership, right? Not just being a part in the program, but do you want to be a leader in this? Do you want to be a part of this? This is not just a program that you're coming to. This is a program that you're going to be a part of for the rest of your life, right? And then, of course, there's the podcast that's available. So all this data, just showing you where I can get all of my data. I'm getting it from people being interviewed on the podcast and the blogs. And then there's all these other EDAC resources that participants and other people can tap into. Next slide. Next slide. So you can't really see these, but we have some goal. The goal was really just to look at the why of the program. Is this program a good program? Does it help people to grow and learn about business? That's really the ultimate piece. Next slide. And so in order to do that, this is just technical stuff. I do what's called a developmental evaluation. Developmental evaluation means it moves in space and time, slowly in increments. But it's different than other evaluations in terms of the participants and the program are part of the evaluation process. So it's not just the evaluator coming in, just looking at stuff, and then giving an audit response. It's about hearing, it's qualitatively hearing from the voice of the people, not just giving them a survey to fill out, right? Or giving them an online survey, fill this out, and then I just analyze that data. It's really hearing from, and it's constant. We're constantly, that's why we have all these videos, because we're constantly interviewing, right? Y'all on camera a lot, interviewing, getting people's responses, being okay, but still making sure that the participants remain anonymous. So I may have responses, but you will never know who said what. And I don't need that. You know who said what, which keeps people comfortable in responding. Next slide. Okay, and this just goes through the steps of it. So it's really about what we call adaptive learning. So it's constantly growing. So during the evaluation process, I'm collecting information, but the program is also learning about the program. The program learns about the program. Administrators in the program learn about the program. The participants are learning about the program. The evaluators are learning about the program. The funders are learning about the program. So everybody's getting some information and knowledge about the program along the way, right? So what we're doing is we're really, the participants, the two that's here, right, they're helping to co-create the program. Because every year their responses makes a change in the program for the next year. So it's constantly, it shifts constantly and growing based on their responses. Next slide. So again, this is where I got all the information from, and just showing you program application, contact sign-in sheets when people come in, intake forms, pre and post tests, surveys. We have a lot of surveys, and then we're doing this. It's a program sustainability assessment tool that we use. We're looking at podcasts. We have focus groups, and we also interview people. Next slide. Next slide. So these, I'm gonna just start moving us through some of the results so you can see some of the snippet of stuff that we have. So here you can see I have a nice picture of some of the referral sources. So how are people knowing about R.I.D.E? And this is some of the information you can see. And the larger the word is, that means more people respond to it, right? And so you can see Instagram is the spot, right? Instagram is getting the information out. People are really getting out on Instagram. But it's also being driven by probation officers, which is good. So we have probation officers really who see R.I.D.E as a great asset. And then you can see social media and some of the other things. Friends are referring. So that's always a good thing when you see other people referring their friends to the program, mean that something well is happening. Next slide. So these are some of the responses, and I'll read some of them to you, that people said when we asked them why this is on the application. It's like, why did you choose R.I.D.E? Why did you choose this program? And so somebody said, just recently released from prison, and I want to start a business. Right? Another person said, you know what, I just need help with life. What's up? Can y'all do that? Somebody said, I always wanted to start my own business because it's hard trying to find good employment with my background. Somebody said, I'm honestly tired of working for others. I'm just ready to be my own boss. I just don't know how or where to start, and I need that extra push. And you can see somebody said, you know what, my probation officer said, check it out, right? I was asked about my probation. And somebody else, I'm interested in the R.I.D.E program because I want to learn more about becoming an entrepreneur and growing my business. I have a business idea, but need the education and funding to get one of my ideas off the ground. I'm willing to learn it all. So this reason why these become important, because people sometimes have a view of people who are returning as if they don't have any intention. And a lot of quotes that I have will dispel that myth about how people feel about people. They actually they're thinking about a lot of things that we just don't know because we've not asked. Next slide. So this is the demographics. I gotta put my eyes on. You can see, and this is cohort, this is year 2. Year 1, it was 165 people. Year 2 was 136. And you can see, when I just have a look, so it's 40% female. The reason why I put that percentage there, and then you can just, that means it's 60% male. But that's important because sometimes we leave out the female discussion when we talk about incarceration. Right? A lot of times when we think of incarceration, it's always, we're thinking about men, black men, right? We're forgetting sometimes, leaving out the sisters, right? Our black females who also need that support. And so, of course, the majority is black. You can see our age range is, the mean is 43.5. So I think the oldest we had was, I want to say it was 67. The youngest we had was 22. So that's important for us to know that we have a nice variety of ages that are coming through. 59.6% have driver's license. So that means we have a large percentage of people who we need to assist to get their driver's license. Because you know, to walk around Baltimore City without a driver's license, right? We know what that means for us. Then you can see, again, this assumption that people who are incarcerated also do not have high school diplomas, but you can see we have a large percentage of our people who are coming in who have been in prison who have a high school diploma, 60.3. You know, that's important for us to kind of think about when we think about our demographics and who we're serving. And then, but you can also see we have a large number who are receiving services, right? They're receiving services outside like SNAP and medical assistance. And so we can see there's a level of support that we need to make sure that we add and think about when we're working with our population. Next slide. You can see range of incarceration years, 0 to 30. The mean is five years. The most amount of years that showed up when it says 0, that means people who served months, right? People who served 1 year, 6 years, and 10 years. We have a lot of people who have served 10 years. In between that, there's a lot of other different numbers, but these are the ones that show up the most. That's what that means. Next slide. These are the distribution of charges. Again, we can see which one stands out. Possession is big, and so, and drugs and handgun, accent coming out. Handgun charges and assault is another area. So these are just what we're talking about. It helps us to see, again, these are some of the charges that with people that we're working with. And again, keeping in mind, this is anonymous. Unless people share their stories, we don't know who we are, right? And that's because that's not what the importance is. Next slide. This slide right here becomes important to me because it talks about what the needs are, right? When people are coming in. So you can see, and I highlight it, and it's just so funny, I didn't order it that way, it just came out that way. You can see that the percentage of needs in our people that we're serving, it starts with financial, right? 82.4% have some level of a financial need. Then next after that is housing. 47%, then it moves into transportation, then it's job skills, and then it's clothing. Okay, people stating that these are some of the needs that they have. And so, when you think about working and you try to tell people, okay, you're coming here to get to learn how to get a job and learn how to start your own business, but we don't help people to address these, then sometimes that work gets lost. Would you agree? All right, next slide. What was really good too was the level of skill that we saw. So we saw that people were coming in at least knowing how to sign on to a website. So, coming, because, sometimes you're coming out, you may not know how to use these things. They had levels of typing skills, because of course, our cell phones, access to cell phones, social media, people knew how to check emails. They had some level of customer service understanding about that, and they had some level of understanding time management. But you can see, which our brother was just talking about, one of the low areas was not knowing how to find a mentor, right? Which is what was just discussed earlier before me, with how important that becomes in the work to do, and they didn't know how to start a business. So mentoring and starting a business. Why R.I.D.E, right? So this is where your why, it just helps us. Next slide. So these are some of the skills that people coming in came with. This is the skills that they identified that they had when they came into the program. So you can see there's a lot of people that were certified in something. They had some level of certification, level of CPR management, forklift training, office, OSHA. You can see a number of different skills that people are coming in with. And so this assumption, again, that people don't have skills is not really true. Next slide. When we asked, a question that I asked them, have you ever held a job before, ever? And what was the type of job? You can see warehouse stands out heavily, technician, working in the food services, housekeeping. So you can see, again, these are some of the skills that people are coming with, although in their mind, I don't want to keep doing that, I want to start my own. Next slide. And we just asked them, what were some of the employers, right? So we want to know, who have they been coming in contact with that gives them their knowledge and experience in what work looks like. Your jobs or your employers gives you some idea of what work looks like, right? That makes sense. Next slide. The reasons for leaving job, see there's the big thing on there. So people were working, and the assumption that people weren't working, right? But this is showing us that people were working, but then they became incarcerated. COVID was another issue that showed up for some. Transportation showed up a lot. A lot of work that they had were temporary, so people in these temporary jobs. Again, not staying in places that they could be in a long time. So this is just an example of some of the information that we're capturing that's kind of helping us when we move into the next phase on how we can assist even people as they go into entrepreneurship. Next slide. Very important because a lot of times the work is done right virtually. So the question is, do you have access to technology? And you can see laptop, we have 45.8%. People have a lot of people are using, the cell phone, and then of course the smaller population, which is pretty much matches the general population, had a shorter percentage of people who are using active computers, which is pretty much matches the general population. Next slide. Then, what was very important for us to find out is how much commitment could you give to the program per week, right? You ask that question, and you can see people really was like, look, I can give you more than 10 hours. If you're gonna help me, I'm willing to give up more than 10 hours. That's crucial data right there, that people are willing to give. You actually, when you talk about that time, right? People were willing to say, you know what, I really want to do this, and I'm willing to give this amount of time. And so even for the 6 to 8 and 8 to 10, the 6 to 8 and the more than 10 was crucial that people were willing to give that much time per week to a program. So that's important. That data kind of stands out for us. It highlights the people who are actually signing up for R.I.D.E is really, really invested in it. Next slide. Next slide. I'm gonna go through these. So the people who really, really completed the program, these are just some of their business ideas. I just put it up so people can see. We have people who want to get into apparel, clothing, mobile work, car wash, landscaping, trucking, plumbing, handyman, breeders, dog breeders. We have people who wanted to develop apps. So you have all these, somebody wanted to open a restaurant. So what we have is all the listing of people's different ideas that they are interested in doing and compiling them, because that becomes important, because we want to track that across the city over time and see these businesses when they show up, how long are they, do they remain successful, are they sustainable, and do they grow? Next one. Next slide, excuse me. And so the question was asked, okay, for those that complete the program, we asked, so what do you want to do with this information that you have, right? Somebody says, you know what, with this information, I will use the information to run my company the correct way and to continue to seek knowledge based on what I've learned so far throughout the training. Somebody else said, I'm going to use the information to help me to market my business. Here we go with the growth wheel. So it's like, you know what, I'm going to keep using the growth wheel. And that's crucial. Somebody else talked about creating a successful business plan so they can run a successful business. And somebody talked about, you'll see how important the growth wheel is to these participants. I have my growth wheel and mentors to help with getting my business launched, right? Next slide. And so we also asked them to rate the program overall, right? Whether the time, this is on a scale, you can see a scale of 1 to 5, 5 strongly agree, 1 strongly disagree. So was the time of the training appropriate? You can see it's veered towards the 4.5, so closer to 5, so that's definitely. Was the sign-up process easy? You can see again, it's sliding closer to the 5. Did the trainer allow them time to answer questions? Were they available to them? That was good. The online platform that was used, was that good? And how long the training was. And so we use this information to kind of help us to guide if we see we need to make any changes or adjustments. The next slide. And then this is, I just pulled out some responses, some qualitative responses from people just to, and this also came from, I took it from the participants and also some of the facilitators. And again, you know, I remember this, when I develop surveys, like they're very intense. And so they were like, can we shorten the survey? It's just too long. got time to do all that. So it's how do we now amend and abbreviate the surveys so it's not as long, right? So we're listening to that, and Omar has shortened it intensely. I have to do it first, and then I have to hand it off because I'm not going to shorten it. This one talks several methods of communications to be used to remind students to attend. So they're saying sometimes we don't just use one method. They want you to text, email, phone. Just don't leave me out there. If I don't respond to your text, call me. If I don't respond to that email, give me all of that. Like, get me in all the areas. Don't give up on me. It's just that one time did not reach me. And then so the advisors, one of the advisors talked about being able to complete this 30, 60, 90 day in a one-on-one session rather than in more of a group. And then they wanted more access to more variety of businesses. A lot of times, if you think about it, we have access to the normal types of businesses. And so sometimes people are looking for some more of the innovative businesses that we don't normally hear about, especially with people of color who are involved in those. And so they wanted more access to that. And then this one person talked about that they feel that there's some additional support and guidance that's needed. And so I will be doing some outreach and doing some interviews to find out what that looks like for them. And then somebody wanted some continuing education by EDAT. So they did want, because if they're participating in stuff, they want to be able to maybe get some CEUs that could probably move them into some college credits. Since it's located on Morgan's campus, why can't they have access to some of the benefits of Morgan and maybe getting some credits or something that's associated to their participation in that. Next slide. Okay, and then we asked, are you interested in joining, being part of the Returning Citizens Association? 85.7 is interested in that. And then the last question, next slide. Are you interested in leadership position? You can see again, we have a nice group of people who are interested, and then there's no here. There's interested, highly interested, and then there's maybe. So you know what that says? Maybe says, I don't think I can. Right? I'm not sure. What does that mean? Me being a leader. And so that just lets us know that there's some areas that we just need to build people up in. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions?
Any questions?
Do you need any questions online?